So I just wanted to officially say good afternoon to you all. Thank you so much for joining the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices Summer 2025 webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about how schools and community-based organizations can work together to boost their summer meals programs. My name is Robin Hernandez. I am the Senior Program Manager for the Center for Best Practices team at No Kid Hungry. Next slide. Before we begin, a few important housekeeping items. The slide deck and recording will be shared with you after the webinar is over. I also encourage you to use the chat box to engage with your other attendees. But if you have questions for our speakers, we ask that you please utilize the Q&A box. Otherwise, it's easy for your questions to get lost in that chat. We're also committed to making our webinars accessible and inclusive. Closed captioning is available, which you can turn on at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So now let's review our agenda. So first off, we're going to, after our housekeeping, we're going to do some data sharing of some surveys that No Kid Hungry conducted. We're going to interview 3 amazing speakers, actually 4 from 3 different organizations who have successfully bridged the partnership between community-based organization and school district to serve more summer meals. There will also be Q&A time and some resource sharing. And then finally, we'll close with a brief survey because we want to know what you all think of our webinars and how we can improve. Next slide. So let's get into it. So No Kid Hungry conducted a survey in late 2024 where we captured feedback from sponsors in 45 states. Additionally, No Kid Hungry commissioned a national survey of families in areas with non-congregate meals in late 2024. Next slide. So what was interesting was sponsors shared that a variety of partnerships enabled them to operate their programs. The 5 most common partnerships were with school districts at 28%, nonprofits were identified at 17%, and faith-based organizations at 16%, followed by Parks and Rec and local government agencies. So, and just wanted to note, nonprofit partners included responses like food banks or pantries, Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, or other groups like 4-H or United Way. 9% mentioned other partnerships like libraries, housing authorities, mobile home parks, tribal government, fire departments, childcare, and the list goes on. Next slide. When we asked families where they picked up their non-congregate meals specifically, schools were the most common pickup place at 61%, and 26% of families picked up meals from community centers. 24% picked up meals from churches, 19% got their meals from a location near their home, and 14% picked up meals from a library. Less common pickup sites were local businesses or gas station or a bus stop. So as you can see, summer meals are finding kids throughout the country in many, many ways. So it is important to consider where the most trusted and or convenient locations for families are in your communities to start building your partnerships to make those summer sites a reality. Next slide. There are so many partners that you can engage for summer meal programs. Here is a very short list of folks that you can reach out to in school settings and in community settings. You're going to actually hear our speakers talk about some of these very partnerships today. The main takeaway here is that there are so many folks working around you that are doing similar work and have similar goals in serving the children in their community. Partners can be great places to reach out to assist with promotion or marketing, or finding site locations, or maybe help with volunteering. They can also help provide activities and engagement for kids, whether you have a congregate site or a non-congregate site, or maybe even want to do some sort of kickoff fair. So the sky's the limit, really, when it comes to working with partners. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going to attempt to launch a poll because we'd like to know who is joining us today. So hopefully you guys see the poll question come up. Go and let us know who you are so we can see who's joining us. I'll just give you a few moments to do this. Okay, one more moment. We're going to end the poll. It's slowing down now. Okay. And just sharing the results. So it looks like A good third of you are joining as a community-based organization, another third as a school district. We've got some faith-based organizations, some state or government agencies, and a little bit of Parks and Rec and others joining us. So thank you so much. And let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. I'm very excited to have an amazing lineup of sponsors who are going to be sharing their expertise with us today. We are joined by Veronica Stevens, the Senior Program Director of the East Tennessee Human Resource Agency. She's going to be sharing her experiences providing summer meals as a large community-based organization in Tennessee and how they worked with schools to do this. Then we are joined by a dynamic duo, Christopher Hutchinson, Food Service Director, and Ginkgo Luder, the Wellness and Marketing Coordinator from Val Verde Unified School District in California. They're going to be sharing how their partnerships with community-based organizations help expand their summer meal service. And finally, we will be joined by Gary Bai, the Director of Special Programs of Fish Community Food Bank in Washington. And he's going to share how their community-based organization worked with partners like schools to make a big impact in their very rural communities. Next slide. Before we go to our sponsors, I just want to note that our speakers represent their own unique experience from their own states and own localities. And before you implement any new summer meals program in your state, please do check with your state agency, because different methods and model implementations may have different rules and restrictions in your area. Next slide. So we're going to start off by having our guest speakers tell you a little bit about their organizations and the unique communities they serve. And then we're going to open it up to a little more of a fireside chat kind of interview with all of our speakers. Next slide. So to answer this first question, we're going to pass it to Veronica Stevens. Veronica is a graduate of Berea College, where she obtained a bachelor's degree in child development. She's been with East Tennessee Human Resource Agency for 34 years, and she's been involved in the CACFP food program and the SFSP program in her entire career at ETHRA. As Senior Program Director, she's responsible for all child nutrition programs. Welcome, Veronica. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to pass it to you now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my agency. I'm with East Tennessee Human Resource Agency. Our agency's been in existence since 1974. We do a variety of programs, over 40 programs actually, including transportation, adult nutrition, CSBG. There's several different programs that we work with that are all community-based. We work with all ages, from children to seniors to families, and our main goal is to help families become more self-sufficient. We partner with schools, churches, other nonprofits, and I've worked with all the child nutrition programs that ETHRA has since 1990, so I've been around for a while. The summer food program, we service all of the East Tennessee area, and last year we served 10 counties. We have served up to 15 counties in the past. We do the non-congregate and congregate, and the unique thing with our organization is we don't have a kitchen. We don't make any food. We don't package any food. All our contracts are with schools, are our first pick. And if we don't have a school that's interested, then we do private vendors. But majority of our contracts are with schools, and we love working with our schools for a couple of reasons. One, the schools are a great facility that's already approved. They can use their bid prices, their commodity items. They also get to work their staff who otherwise wouldn't get at work. They all have experience, and they're just great to work with. And we love that the revenue goes back into the school systems. All right, next slide. Next slide, please. Oh.
Okay. Thank you so much, Veronica. We're excited to hear more about your operation coming up. But next, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Christopher and Ginkgo to tell us a little bit about their organization. First, I'm going to tell you about Christopher and Ginkgo, though. Christopher Hutchinson is the Director of Nutrition Services at Val Verde Unified School District in California, bringing over 20 years of experience in school food service. With a background in business admin, Chris focuses on food service operations, community collaboration, and expanding access to meal programs. Driven by a deep purpose to support children and families, Chris works to strengthen every community partnership and ensure every child has access to nutritious meals. He's also joined by Ginkgo Luder, who's a registered dietitian nutritionist with experience in WIC and over 8 years of experience in child nutrition. She served as nutrition specialist for Riverside Unified and now leads wellness and marketing efforts at Valverde Unified School District. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Chris and Ginkgo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone across the nation. I think it is a good afternoon, I guess, for some of us. So, I'll tell you a little bit about our program. Valverde Unified School District is a K-12 school district. We are a multi-program sponsor in the regular school year. We run National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast, CACFP Supper, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable this year we just started. But in the summer months, we run Seamless Summer Feeding Option. And we're committed to make sure that every student has nutritious meals, even in the off times, which is one of our district's board visions. Summer of 2024, we served about 233,000 meals, just about. Those are breakfast and lunch combined, which for us is a 63% increase in our program. So this summer, our goal is to expand that reach of our summer meals program even more. So by broadening participation, we aim to provide free meals to even more children across the district and the surrounding community. So this effort is going to help us and our board vision to address food insecurity and ensure that the children have nutrition they need. So our district, if you see there's a map of our district. There's a freeway that splits it down the middle diagonally. That's the 215 freeway in Riverside County, Southern California. Our district covers 58 square miles, Meade Valley, Paris, and Moreno Valley. We have a population of about 92,000 people. 20,000 of them are our students. The west side of our district has limited food access. It's rural, hilly areas, while the east side is suburban with warehouses and it has a large reservoir, Lake Paris. Demographically, 80% of our population is Hispanic, Latino. 60% of our population is economically disadvantaged. And then in Southern California, and I'm sure maybe other places around the nation, high fuel costs, housing expenses, transportation challenges for our rural area, especially in extreme heat, make it tough for many of our families to access the meals in the summer months. So to combat this, we've partnered with many key programs. This includes 11 ELOP sites for California. These are state-funded expanded learning opportunity programs that they do after school, before school programs. But in the summer months, they run summer school type programs. We also work with our traditional summer school, our special ed extended school year, and then kind of really something we're excited about doing because it reaches a lot of families are our 5-day non-congregate meals that we serve at our high school within our district. We've also teamed up with local organizations offering meals at Meade Valley Library and the Moreno Valley Sports Park. And these partnerships ensure that our families have the access to nutrition that they need. Next slide, please. And just to talk a little bit about what we have to do for the program to run it, we do we fill out applications, we perform compliance checks, we staff and train the staff, we procure and deliver food, we collaborate with community members and organizations, and we also promote. And last year, again, this was our first time doing a summer kickoff for our 5-day meal program. We were very excited about that. And a photo you see there is our curbside 5-day non-congregate meeting.
Thank you so much, Christopher and Ginkgo. It's exciting to hear about all the different partnerships that you guys created, especially for the first time and how successful they were. So we'll look forward to hearing more about those partnerships with those organizations and your kickoff later on in the webinar. Next, we're going to go ahead and pass it to Gary Bai, who serves as the Director of Special Projects at Fish Food Bank, where he oversees most programs apart from the food bank and pantries. Those programs include their senior nutrition programs, where they serve about 75,000 meals a year, and food as medicine programs, picnic in the park, and the summer food service program. Gary and his wife have 8 children and 6 grandchildren, and you can often find him off-road motorcycle camping. So thank you, Gary, for joining us today, and I'm going to pass it over to you.
Well, hi there. Thank you for having me. I am part of Fish Food Bank. We are a small food bank in a rural eastern Washington county. We're located just in the center of Washington, and have been in existence for about 50 years. For the first 40 years or so, what we did is we were a food bank and we had a food pantry, and we served and tried to address food insecurity. And that's what we still do. Although over the last 10 or 12 years, we've started to change and adapt. We've added a community meal where anybody from the community can come in. We purchased a restaurant. They can sit down and have a meal. They get served like in a restaurant, but it doesn't cost them anything. But our biggest changes over the last 10 or 12 years have been we identified that there was quite a few kids and seniors that were slipping through the cracks. And so we started strategically identifying and adding programs that address those needs, that address and fed seniors or kids. For our seniors, we have a senior nutrition program. We have 2 locations, again, where they can come in, sit down, and have a nice meal served to them. And then we have a Meals on Wheels program. And then we also added about 12 years ago the summer food service program, which we call Picnic in the Park. And so we really tried to broaden and target making sure that there weren't hungry seniors or kids that weren't being able to have access to a good meal. And then over the last probably 4 or 5 years, we're starting to transition additionally into the food as medicine space. So kind of where food, nutrition, and health align, and offering medically tailored meal programs and a produce prescription program. For our summer food service program, Picnic in the Park, our county where we serve the entire Kittitas County. And maybe if you could go to the next slide, I think I have a map on that. So we serve the entire county, which is large, sparsely populated. It's huge in size. So the geographic size of our county is about 1.5 times the size of the state of Rhode Island. But there's only about 45,000 residents. And there's a couple areas where the population is a little bit more densely populated, but most of it is just very spread out. And so for our summer food service program, it really presented some challenges in our more populated areas like Ellensburg and Clay Ellen. We could do the congregate meals. We'd set up in a park, and kids would come, and it worked well. But we knew that there was a number of outlying towns, like in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. We have 2 towns, Easton and Roslyn, where lots of people live up into the hills, and especially the farther you go up, it may be less expensive to live. So a lot of these people were really in need of food, but yet it was just too far for them to drive all the way down 20 minutes, half an hour for one lunch. And so one of the challenges we had is trying to put congregate sites there and being able to reach the kids. We knew there were people up there. We tried a few years ago, about 3 years ago, we tried putting a site in Roslyn, and knowing that the kids were there, but we averaged only about 4 kids a day serving lunch because most of them were just too far out. And so when we shifted to the non-congregate site we were able to feed so many more people. It just was logistically worth their time to schedule their trip once a week into town when we were doing the boxed non-congregate delivery. And so in Roslyn, our numbers went from averaging 4 per day, or about 20 per week. Summer, we averaged around 730 per week, because people were able to come in and get the food that they need. So we offer a number of sites. In our more populated areas, we still have the congregate sites, which we shifted some of them this last summer to hybrid sites, where we do Monday through Thursday. They come in for their regular single lunch meal, but then on Friday they come in and they're given a bag with 5 meals, Friday lunch, but then also Saturday lunch and breakfast and Sunday lunch and breakfast. So we have hybrid sites. We have 5 sites that are strictly non-congregate, that are farther out rural sites. And then we have a few of our sites are still just the congregate. So we do a mix of different sites that we serve our county. And next slide.
I think it's back to me now on this next slide. Thank you so much, Gary. I think it's really great that you were able to utilize the non-congregate service to reach all of those rural kids, because you're right, it really can make a big impact in those rural areas. And I'm excited just to have all of our speakers here, because you each really represent a very different a different space as far as the organizations that you represent, but also different regions, and your communities look so different. So I'm hoping that everybody on the call today sees their organization a little bit in some of our speakers today. So at this point now, we're just kind of ask some questions and love to just hear you share your thoughts. We want to know a little bit more about how your organization worked with schools, and so that would be, really for Gary and Veronica, or with community-based organizations for Christopher and Ginkgo, to serve more summer meals last year, specifically non-congregates. I know there's a lot of folks on the call who are doing that type of service. But in particular, what roles and responsibilities did each partner have? Who was the sponsor? Who was in charge of the meals? So I'm going to pass it to Veronica first to answer this question.
Okay, thank you. With ETHRA, we served as the sponsor, and we contracted with the schools. And of course, we had a huge increase because of the non-congregate. That went over very well, because a lot of our areas are very rural. And with doing a distribution one day a week, like was said, it made it worth the drive to come in and get the food. And of course, a lot of our families had multiple children in the household, and so they were picking up, a large number of meals each day. And with our schools, how we started that partnership was, we, of course, since I said we didn't have a kitchen, we went to the schools and talked directly to the food service director first, because you got to get that one person on board, because it's her staff that she's got to convince we want to do this. And so I just explained the pros and the cons, and all of them are pros, really, because she can work her staff, she can use her facility, and the big pro is the revenue that's made goes back into the food service department. So we've had schools that, due to revenue that they've had through the summer, have been able to remodel their whole cafeterias, buy large item equipment that they needed, and it just wasn't in the budget. Of course, the win-win is they're benefiting and the children are getting fed. And the fact that we can use their facilities to have the food prepped, have their staff to serve it, and the facility of having the line going through schools that the kids are familiar with, and the staff's familiar with the parents, it's just a great partnership. And so I've had great success with the schools. I've only got 2 areas that I don't work with schools directly. We have private vendors that do the summer food program, but all our schools have been great successes. And as far as the sponsor, basically the school just has to do the food. The sponsor does the application, which is huge if you've done it before. We do all the site eligibility to make sure all the sites in an eligible area. We do all the training, we do all the monitoring, we process the claim, and we basically write a check to them at the end of each month. So we make it real easy for the schools, and that's our goal, because working together, we can feed more kids, and if we kind of share the workload, it makes a world of difference.
That's great, Veronica. Thank you for breaking that down. I think that's definitely a unique system, especially for school districts who are used to carrying that administrative burden year round. It's probably nice for them to be able to say, okay, you take the admin work this time. They didn't just show up and do what they do best, which is make the meals and serve the kids.
Absolutely.
So let's see, Christopher and Ginkgo, how would you like to answer this question?
So, you know, at Val Verde, we focused on building partnerships. A lot of our system is that we are the sponsor and we're using our facilities. But we have what I would consider 3 community sites. Our library, where we serve meals, we provide the meals, they serve them. And then our park, which is a sports park. We actually rent the facility from the city and we staff it with our staff. And we work with our ELOP program to provide staff to do activities, physical sports type activities. And also the library on 1 day a week, we relieve ELOP of those duties to do recreational activities, scavenger hunts, fun things that the kids can do, maybe involving reading, which is one of our board's goals for reading by 3rd grade. So we really wanted to go beyond just providing meals to create a supportive community environment that kind of takes into consideration the whole child. And our key partners were community organizations, again, city programs. They offered resources during our kickoff event, like employment services for families that are coming to bring their kids, nutrition education from some of our local farmers and things like that. We also worked with our district food vendors. We worked with our dairy company, produce vendors, and we engaged the families to promote healthy food choices, which kind of helped deal with some of our goals. And then public officials, we worked with Mayor's Alliance to End Childhood Hunger out of the city of Paris. And they helped extend program awareness for our summer meals program to help bridge that gap for food insecurity in the summertime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris and Ginkgo. And Gary, do you want to just speak to this question real quick? How did you work with schools in particular? Who did what in your programs?
Yeah, I would love to. We work extensively with the schools. There's 5 districts in our county, and we work with all of them. We are the sponsor organization for the summer food service program in the entire county. But the schools partner with us just in incredible ways. So all 5 of them promote and do some basic things. They'll help promote, they'll send out flyers, but different schools partner in different ways based on the situation. Easton is fantastic. The secretary and counselor go through the roster. It's a smaller school district, and that's one of those mountain towns. They go through the student roster, identify the kids that they know are lower income that could really use the food, and then they take the initiative. They talk with the parents, sign up the kids, and they give us a list of these are the kids that will be receiving boxes, and we go once a week and deliver them a box of food. So they take the ball and run with it. A different program or a different district, Thorpe, what they do is that's the one district in our county that doesn't qualify with over 50% free and reduced lunches in the school district. And so in order to qualify for the site, we have an MOU with them, and they share we have a site at the school, but they share their list of who qualifies, who has qualified, which students for free and reduced lunches. So we can make sure that at least 50% of the kids that we are serving qualify, and we qualify that site in that way. Ellensburg is just fantastic. It's where our headquarters is based, and they bend over backwards to work with us and help us. They allow us to use their with the middle school kitchen to produce all of our lunches. And a couple of years ago, when we shifted into non-congregate, because it increased so much our demand, they gave us more space and storage space and refrigeration space to do our production. And in fact, up until this last year, they even allowed us to order our food through their distributor, and they were billed, and then they passed on that bill to us. This last year, we were going through enough volume that we developed a relationship with the distributor and started buying directly. But the school district, Ellensburg, has just been fantastic. Kittitas also, they allow us to have a site on grounds. They promote it really well. The school districts love having us. We help them in a mission because we all care about the same thing. We care about kids. We want to make sure there's not kids that go hungry. And because we, as an organization, Fish is willing to do most of the heavy work of running the sites, the school districts have been just more than happy to help us and partner with us in so many different ways.
Thank you so much, Gary. At this point, we're going to go to the next question. This is kind of a build on the last question, but this is about what steps did you take to build these partnerships? Who did you engage? And Veronica, you touched on this a little bit with, if you're a community-based organization and you want to work with schools, you got to reach out to the nutrition services director. But how did you create these partnerships? Who reached out to who, and what did you need to do to ensure that there was a symbiotic relationship between everybody? So let's go ahead and we'll start this time with Chris and Ginkgo. How did you reach out to your partners?
Hello, I'll take this one. So in addition to the partnerships already mentioned before, we did focus on early planning because some of our partners need like 6 months advance notice, 3 months advance notice. So being aware of that and just reaching out early, even if the details aren't completely set. And we worked with schools. We worked internally with some of our partners. We had, as Chris mentioned, the ELOP program, which is the extended learning opportunity program. So they're the ones who came out to our summer feeding at the sports park, and they did activities with the kids. We also worked with our family engagement center because they did a lot of the connection with families on our summer meals program. And we also partnered with, for summer kickoff event, we brought together like the food vendors, the city programs, local organizations to provide families with resources, like Chris said, beyond meals. So throughout the summer, we incorporated the high school students to help volunteer to get their community hours to distribute meals. So that was helpful. And we also invited No Kid Hungry to come to our 5-day meal distribution site to personally thank the team handing out the meals because it's in the middle of summer and it can get over 100 degrees. So they definitely deserve that recognition because they were working hard out there just to give families those access to those boxes. So the early partnerships are great. And then continuing that engagement, I would say were essential to the success of last year's program for the kickoff, as well as the 5-day meal distribution and the sports park partnership.
Awesome. So many different partnerships that you were able to use. That's amazing. And Veronica, you touched on this question earlier. Is there anything you wanted to add to that as far as recommendations you have for this partnership between schools and community-based organizations?
Well, I 100% agree with starting early. Most people, in the winter months and the holidays are thinking about one thing. I'm thinking about summer already. And when I present before our board, our program for approval, it's usually snowing outside, which, just says how early you have to start, the whole different season. But as far as other partnerships, something that has been successful for us as well is with the congregate sites, not just the non-congregate, even though we do it in both, we use the people in the community as volunteers. So we don't pay any site supervisors out of our budget. Every site supervisor we have is a volunteer, whether it's through the school system, it's through churches that want to get involved. Community colleges are great to look at. High schools are great to look at because a lot of those people have to have community service hours. And this is a great program for them to be involved in and to kind of get more familiar with their community and what the needs are and kind of open their eyes up. I've had some that have worked that have come back that were college students and said we had no idea. We had no idea kids were hungry. I wasn't hungry. I figured nobody else was. Now they really opened their eyes to the community and what challenges there are. Everybody's different. Every household's different. Everybody has their own story. And I think that opening those eyes to lots of people, especially young people, I think is very important. And then we just try to make awareness of the program is going to exist, where it's going to exist as early as we can, and just get the word out. That makes a world of difference. But yeah, early organization and early planning is huge.
Definitely. And I think it's especially amazing that you staff your program entirely from volunteers. That's amazing, especially because right now a lot of school districts they have a hard time getting their staff to work during the summer months. So that's amazing. But it sounds like there's a lot of work that goes into gathering those volunteers. So the key
There
is
is a lot.
do the work to get the volunteers start early, and I guess you're proof you can staff your whole program with the volunteers. That's amazing. Gary, anything you'd like to note on this question?
Yeah, I would just echo what the rest has said. Relationships are just critical to accomplishing what we want to accomplish and investing in those relationships. Volunteers, we use a lot of volunteers. Veronica, you mentioned churches. We partner with a lot of churches. We had a church in one town where we had a congregate site that for years they volunteered to be the site supervisor, and then they were in charge of getting volunteers to serve at that site, and they just took over the whole site. And so maybe I'm sure relationships are important everywhere, but especially as a rural organization in a rural area, relationships are critical, and they open doors, or lack of relationship closes doors. And so fortunately, Fish, our organization, has had great relationships. And so maybe most of the summer food service relationships from the school districts to sites were in place when I started working here about 4 years ago. And we've been able to maintain those. For schools, there's lots of different people that you can talk to if you're a community organization trying to establish. What I found, though, is that it's really important to have a champion within the school district, or if your school district within the organization you're trying to partner with, to have a champion. And so we will talk to lots of different people, from the superintendent and the principals, certainly the food service employees. But like in Easton, it's a secretary, the front desk secretary, that really took the ball and ran and got the school and the school district on board. And so it's just investing in those relationships, talking to lots of people. And then something else I've learned is that your attitude really makes a big difference. When you approach another organization, a school, to work with you, the attitude that you have, if you come, when we try to come humbly and respectfully to people that we partner with, or organizations that we partner with, it's easy for any of us organizations. We have an agenda, we want to do something, and it's a great thing, it's feeding kids. And so we're trying to achieve an agenda. And so when we partner with somebody, or when we try to partner, it might be easy for them to be seen as we just need them, or we're trying to use them to accomplish what we want to accomplish. Whereas if we come humbly and say, hey, you your help would be really helpful, but we're all on the same plane, we're on the same level, and we care about the same things. And truly come with an attitude of, let's partner together to serve this community and meet this need. It makes a big difference on how other people and other organizations respond. Another thing that I've learned in partnering is, every organization or person has a certain way of thinking and a way of doing things. And so for healthy partnerships, being flexible and maintaining the ability to be flexible as partner and having both organizations or all the people be willing to flex and to come up with something that works for everybody. So, communicating well, having a good attitude, being flexible, are tools that we found, or attitudes and perspectives that really help our partnerships to be more successful.
Thank you so much, Gary. That's really, really good advice. I think for whether you're a school or a community-based organization, in approaching your partners, I think that's invaluable. And you're right, especially in the rural locations, really everywhere, but it sounds like especially in rural locations, like it's all about how you approach people. So thank you for that. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. I know we had one more question, but we have a lot of questions in our Q&A. Folks have a lot of questions for you guys, so I'm going to skip to the Q&A portion. And if we have time, we'll go back to the last question. So there are some questions specific for each of you, so you're welcome to go into the Q&A box and type in your answers. But I'm going to start first. We've got a question for Veronica, if you can answer it. Yeah,
Sure.
I'll pass these to y'all. It says, can you talk a little bit more about the revenue schools receive and where's the revenue coming from? I don't know if there's a brief response to that or not, but would you like to take that one?
Sure. With the revenue, it's all about quantity. The more meals you serve, the more revenue you're going to make. And how we start out a program with a new school is we do a lot of outreach to kind of get an idea of how many children we're going to expect. And we can base that on how many children are enrolled, how many are in the community. You can use some census data to see how many kids are in the area that are within that 2 to 18 age range. And then if you're doing non-congregate, we do a registration so we can get an idea. That way they'll kind of know what to order and so forth. But where the revenue comes in is we have a one-page contract we do with our school systems, and we have a set rate in there for each meal. And of course, it's going to come down to the quantity. The more kids you serve, the higher your revenue is going to be. And then the schools take out of that revenue their staff that they used. Of course, they're not going to have a lot of overhead because they're using the school facility. Their food, they're getting at a good price because of their beds, their commodity foods, items that may have been left over through the school year they might be able to use. And so, of course, if you're real frugal with those things, your revenue is going to go up.
Thank you so much, Veronica. There's a couple questions also in here regarding staffing. So whoever wants to jump in on this, if you can give a quick answer on what your strategies are. If staff don't want to work in the summer, do they want to have the summer off? So I'm wondering specifically, like school districts, Chris and Ginkgo, did you have any issues with staff that didn't want to work in the summer? And did you have any ways that you were able to get your program staffed?
Yeah, we did. Well, I should say we didn't have an issue, but it's because of what Gary talked about. It's the relationships we keep with our staff. They understand that it's purposed work. And so it's not just, hey, we need you to come here and serve some food. No, we're trying to serve the community. We're trying to reach children in the summer months so that they have access to nutritious meals. We get about 50% of our staff to sign on, which is enough for us to run all of our programs. And that's just kind of how we've been able to deal with it.
And Gary, I know you had a unique way that you guys staffed your programs. You actually worked with the school district staff, but they worked with you guys in the summer. Can you share briefly how that worked?
Correct. We hire a number of school district kitchen staff who have the summer off from the school district. So they become fish employees during the summer. And it's fantastic because they know the kitchens, they know the school lunch program and what the meal requirements are. And so they're great to work with. And then in addition to that, we have a lot of volunteers. We rely as an organization heavily on volunteers. We have a lot more volunteers than we do staff. And so we have volunteers come in to help assemble the lunches or volunteers to help at sites. So we do a combination of hiring mostly school staff that are off for the summer and then using volunteers.
Thank you for that. Another volunteer-related question for Veronica. Did you have a problem with turnover of volunteer staff? And they said, I worry about using volunteer as a site manager. Can you explain your process to keep them all summer?
Well, when I say volunteers, a lot of times I'm using the people that are involved in the programs. So if you have like congregate sites and you use a library, your volunteer is going to be your librarian. If you are doing summer school, your volunteers are going to be your teachers. Community centers, their staff that they already have there are going to serve the meals. So there's no pay there because they're not going to be employees of you. It's just part of their program, and it's a benefit to them to be able to feed the children and not have an expense. And so I think that partnerships is important because they realize they're benefiting and I'm benefiting as well. But I don't have much turnover at all because we have a lot of the same programs that come back. And the schools, since we do that contract with them, they use their staff. So, they're basically volunteers to me because I'm not paying, a salary for them, and the school salaries coming out of their revenue, which is going to be the difference. Kind of going back to the last question. The schools can do the meals so much cheaper than what the revenue or what the reimbursement rate is. And so they can base their budget off that. But no, I don't have a lot of turnover. I really don't. Plus, like you said, attitude. If you got a good attitude and they kind of buy into that I'm really helping kids and I love this, and they come in during the day and they're excited about it. They get the kids excited about it. They want to come back. The kids want to come back. So it works for us.
That's awesome. I have another question here. This one's kind of a technical question, so if anybody here has an answer, go ahead and throw it out. The question is, we stopped partnering with our local community church with our summer meals because they had a fee for students to attend a VBS or Vacation Bible School. Have you seen any issues with the partnership that also has a fee for kids to attend? Has anybody seen anything like that before?
I've not had anything that involves a fee other than like Boys and Girls Clubs and, Girls Inc. and so forth. But that's just part of, and a lot of them actually have scholarships where the kids go for free too.
Mhm.
Actually, we've had a site that was right next to a daycare, which obviously you have a fee if you're putting your kid in a daycare. And it was okay if the daycare brought classrooms over to the congregate site. They could have lunch. So if you're at an event for us or by an event with a fee, you can, that's okay, we can still give out lunches. We just couldn't be part of the organization charging the fee. There can't be any fee that you charge when you give out the lunches. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's see, there was another question here. For those that do non-congregate meals for multiple days, which I know all of you have. Now, this is a large question. It says, what are you giving them to eat for multiple days? So if anybody wants to share just a quick overview of like what your meal types look like, what kind of food items you're giving out.
I can give an example of what we used for our menu for the first year, and it rotates weekly. So a lot, like Veronica said, at times it's things that we can use up, but then at other times we really look at what our community likes. So we had a picture earlier on that showed we had a full-size freezer pizza. Sometimes we went over on the servings, just to make sure they had enough. But for example, we gave them, let's give an example of our June. It was 3 bagels, white, 2 blueberry bagels, 5 cups of no nut butter, which is a peanut butter substitute, 1 whole pizza, which was individually wrapped, 8-cut pizza, 1 can of garbanzo beans, a 1/2 cup of potato wedges, 8 wedges each. We varied the vegetables because we figured somebody wouldn't want to eat the same vegetable every day. romaine lettuce, cucumber, same with the fruits, gala apples, plums, melons, and then 2 half-gallons of white milk were offered. They can take one if they would like, or they can take both. That's just 1 week.
Thank you, Christopher.
My schools vary. They do something very similar, or they try to do as many fresh fruits and vegetables as possible. And of course, we do the gallons of milk. And with the entrees, we just do like a different entree for each day. And it may be, as long as we have the CN label, one of the things that they use that's been very successful is they will use stuff they serve during the school year. And so the kids are used to getting it. They know they like it. They've kind of already weeded out what they don't eat and what they do eat. And so a lot of times they'll use the same kind of components during the summer program when they do the non-congregate.
Thank you, Veronica. We still have several questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to invite all the speakers to go in and type some answers if you have an answer. But before we do, and before we go to the resources, I'm going to ask you just very quickly, you can give me a 1 or 2 sentence answer. What are you looking forward to for your summer meals program for 2025? Any new changes or advice that you have for folks based on your learnings? So Veronica, we can start with you because you're up.
Okay. One thing I would say as far as advice is if you are a school, you're thinking about doing this and you're going to work with a sponsor such as ETHRA, I would partner you with the school that's already doing it on our program, that already has worked out the kinks, and let you consult with them. That way they can kind of give you some good advice, get you started on the right foot. And I would also advise you to start small. Just get your feet wet before you jump in. And I know in Tennessee, you can add sites on all summer. So you can start with a few sites just for a couple of weeks and then add on as you feel comfortable. For 2025, our biggest thing is we are adding more non-congregate sites in some unserved areas. So we are going to partner with Anderson County Schools. We're in negotiations with that. And Warren County Schools will be doing large bulk distributions instead of the last year they did the unitized meals and the kids could come in and take it with them, but where they're going to do bulk drive through this year. And I think it's going to make a huge difference in their numbers. And we just really try to focus on the areas that aren't being served. And of course, we're happy to grow anywhere we're already in.
Thank you so much, Veronica. And then Christopher and Ginkgo, in a quick word, what are you looking forward to for this summer?
So we're looking for expanding more of our partnerships, especially with neighboring school districts that do not have the rural feeding sites. We want them to share with their families who are just around the corner from us to be able to come to our location to pick up those meals. And then partnering also with the transportation agencies to make sure that, people that are in these locations can get to our location to get the meals.
Awesome. Thank you, Ginkgo. And then Gary, in a quick word, what are you looking forward to in 2025?
So we are looking to add some sites and then convert one of our congregate sites, at least, and maybe 2, to non-congregate where it's appropriate. And looking forward, I would just suggest if there's anybody listening here that lives in a rural area or has rural pockets and you're not utilizing the rural non-congregate service, I would really encourage you to look into that. In our rural environment, rural non-congregate delivery was truly a game changer. When people are so spread out, it just wasn't worth them economically to come in every day for lunch. Even if they really needed it, the cost was just too high. Whereas they do come in with just when there's one day a week where they come in. In our rural area, over the last 3 years, we've been able to triple the number of meals that we give out because of the rural non-congregate service. We serve more kids and actually more of the kids that are highest at need because we can target them working with the schools, reaching out to them. And so we are able to give out more lunches to the kids that we really want to make sure are fed. And our costs for non-congregate service are less. We're just going once rather than 5 times a week. The turnout is better because people only have to come in once. So we're giving out more meals. We can do more higher capacity packing. So it's less expensive for us per meal for us to produce those meals, and we give out more. And so I would really encourage, if you haven't tried the non-congregate, it is different and there's challenges that you'll have to overcome, but I would encourage you to give it a try and see how it works in your area.
Thank you so much, Gary. And Taylor, if we can throw the slides back up, I just want to share a couple quick announcements. You guys don't want to miss these announcements, so just one moment. We have some resources to share with you that can help you in planning your programs. Let's see. Okay, there they are. So be sure to visit our Center for Best Practices page for upcoming webinars, resources, and more. We'll also be sharing out this deck so you can get some direct links to our food service overview. There's some resources on libraries and partnerships, and then of course the capacity builder, which can help you also identify sites and partners. Next slide. If you want to stay in the know on all things summer meals, we have a new newsletter. It's once a month. It's very short, and it's just all things summer meals. You can use this QR code to subscribe. I will also put the link in the chat right now for you all. But it's going to have everything related to summer meals and our newsletters. Next slide. And our next webinar, we have a little break because of the spring break season. Everybody's having their spring breaks at a different time. But you don't want to miss our next webinar, which is going to be all about serving beyond summer school and reaching more kids with rural summer meals. So we're going to have speakers from throughout the country share various ways they're reaching their kids and give you some ideas for small ways you can make a great impact beyond serving your summer school population. I'm going to put that link in the chat as well. It is officially up and running for our May webinar. Next slide. And then at the close of this webinar, you're going to get a brief 5-question survey. We really appreciate it if you would just fill it out and let us know how we're doing and any topics you would like to hear from us in the future. And we personally read through every single one of these responses. We want to know what's important to you and what's going to help you reach the kids in your community this summer. Next slide. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for spending this hour with us. And a huge thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this webinar and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great afternoon, everyone.